Hello, let's do the New York Times Medium Sudoku for May 21st, 2024. There is a link in the description if you'd like to try the puzzle yourself using the same Sudoku pad software I do, which I consider better than the New York Times' built-in software. And I'm going to get started right now. But before we get started, I do make certain assumptions about what you know about Sudoku, which is not very much. So I'm going to go over some terminology here and make sure we're all on the same page. I do this in every medium solve. I know it can get a little tiring to hear it every time, but I don't want to assume that this isn't your first video that you've encountered of mine trying to get help with classic Sudoku. So first of all, these are all cells. There's 81 cells in the grid. It's a 9x9 grid of cells. And the important thing about cells is we are going to be filling digits into the cells between 1 and 9. And every cell will end up with a digit in the solution to the Sudoku. The other thing to understand is there is only one solution that works. So we will not be guessing what digits go in the cells. This is a logic puzzle, not a gambling puzzle. And if you start gambling, you're going to start breaking the puzzle. You're not going to have the correct solution. You're going to run into problems possibly much later on. So it's much better to solve it logically in a way where every time you place a digit, you are 100% sure that that is the only digit that should go in that cell. You have proven that digit goes in that cell. Now, how does that work? Well, there are restrictions on where digits can go. Basically, we have rows, which is a horizontal line of cells. We have columns, which is a vertical line of cells. And we have these 3x3 boxes, which are only the bold outlined areas. So there's bold outlined areas that are these 3x3 boxes. So this is not bold outlined. It's got bold outlines going through it, but it's not outlined itself. So that is not a box. There are 9 of each. There are 9 rows, 9 columns, and 9 boxes in the puzzle. And in each row, column, and box, we are placing the digits 1 to 9 exactly once each. So it appears exactly once. It's not omitted, and it's not repeated. And so, for example, in this row, there is already a 2, which means that for the rest of the row, we are not allowed to put any more 2s. They need to be filled with the other digits that aren't 2. Similarly, this column, this 2 is also the 2 for this column. So the rest of this column cannot be 2. It's going to be 1 through 9. It's going to be 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? It's going to be everything but the 2. And similarly, this is the 2 for box 1 here, this first box, which means that the rest of the box is not 2. It's going to be the other digits. So that is how we logically arrive at the answer through those restrictions. And those restrictions, along with what we call givens, so these digits are given to us, they cannot be changed. That creates the puzzle that has one solution to it. All right, so now the way we're going to get started is kind of a systematic approach that starts with what I call the low-hanging fruit. It starts with stuff that we want to find first, and then we escalate as we need to stuff that might be a little bit harder to find, a little bit more involved to prove. And so by starting with the easiest stuff, we have seeded the puzzle with as much information as we can before we have to go and find some harder stuff. That's how I approach the mediums. In the hards, I do a bit more of a hybrid approach where I'm looking for multiple things at once. But for the mediums, we go step by step. And so the first step is to look at bands. Now, just for one last bit of terminology right now. A row of 3 boxes we call a band. There's nothing special rules-wise about them, but it is a convenient way of referring to a row of 3 boxes, and then a column of 3 boxes is a stack. Again, it's just that's rotated 90 degrees, right? So it's a vertical column of 3 boxes. We call that a stack. We call this a band. Hopefully those words invoke that imagery for you. They're pretty well named. So we're going to start by looking at the bands. And we're going to look for a specific thing in the bands. What we're going to look for is when we have 2 out of the 3 of a digit in a band. How do I know that there's going to be 3 of each digit in the band? Well, it's made up of 3 rows. That's one way we can know. Each row has each digit once. And so there's going to be 3 of them, 1 per row. We also have 3 boxes. Each box will have the digit once. So there will be 1 of each per box. We can use that to know that if we have 2 out of 3 digits. So for example, we have 2 4s known in this band. 1, 2. We don't know where the third 4 is, but we kind of do because we have 2 of them, right? So the third 4 is going to be in the row that doesn't have a 4 yet, and the box that doesn't have a 4 yet. This row has a 4, this row has a 4, this box has a 4, and this box has a 4. So it has to be in this row and this box, and it has to be a single 4 that is in both. So only in the intersection of those two, the 4 will end up in one of these 3 cells. Now, this is where we actually, I guess there's another, let me show another way to kind of prove that. That's a little bit more straightforward, which is that this box needs a 4. And this 4 here says not in this row, and this 4 here says not in this row. We end up with the same conclusion, that we need a 4 in one of these 3 cells. Now, this is the only time we really peek out of the band during this first pass, which is we want to look down and see how many 4s there are beneath it in the other bands. So in this stack, how many other 4s are there? And we see we have this 4 taking 4 out of here, and this 4 taking 4 out of here. So this is the best possible result for looking for this. Usually doesn't happen, but when it does, it's very nice. We have discovered that this box, it needs a 4, and there's only one cell that can be the 4. And so we are actually safe placing the 4 here, because the box needs a 4. It's the only place for a 4. We know that there needs to be a 4, so that's where it goes. We can't put a 4 anywhere else without breaking Sudoku rules, and we need a 4, so it goes there. And that's called a hidden single. Now, let's break down terminology as we go. Hidden means that we're dealing with a row, column, or box. So we're looking at the cells in a row, column, or box in order to get a hidden technique. So in this case, we're looking at the 9 cells in this box. And single means that we have reduced it to one cell, one single cell, right? So a hidden single. If we want to do the full name of what we just did, we found a hidden single 4, that 4 being the digit that was placed, in box 3. This is box 3, 1, 2, 3. We count left to right, top to bottom. And so this is box 3, and we found a hidden single 4 in box 3, which means there is a single cell in box 3 that can be 4, so we placed it. So that's what that means. Now what we want to do is we want to find all of the repeated digits, all the digits that appear twice. Now you can just try to like scan your eyes and just sort of see, but it's actually really easy to miss it, especially if there's a lot. So I like to use this technique here where I look at, I compare each box against each other box. So box 1 against box 2, box 1 against box 3, and box 2 against box 3. So there are 3 total comparisons between boxes. And I start with the box with the fewest digits in it that are known, the fewest givens usually. So we have the 2 and the 4 here. And then we look in the other 2 boxes for a 2 or a 4. And in this case, we did find the 4 already. This is when we would have found it. There is no other 2, so we don't worry about it. And then we've just done 2 of the comparisons, box 1 against box 2 and box 1 against box 3. So we just have to compare the other 2 boxes. I take this 7 and 4. We already took care of the 4, but there is another 7, so those 7s look in. So 7 ends up in one of these 3 cells, but obviously the 2 is in this cell, so we can't also put the 7. So the 7 is reduced to 2 places. We look down here, there are no 7s helping, unlike here where we have the 4s. And so 7 ends up in one of these 2 cells. We're not going to be guessing, so we're not just going to pick one and place it. That wouldn't be a good idea. We have a 50% chance of being wrong right at the start of the puzzle. And we may not notice. We may not notice why that 7 doesn't work for a very long time, and that would be bad. So instead, we want to use our notation system to help remember that 7 is in one of those 2 cells. And what's nice about Sudoku Pad is it does support 2 notation systems, a corner mark and a center mark. We're going to use those to mean 2 different things. So we're going to use corner marks to mean that within the box, it's always box-centric. It means that within that box, we have reduced the digit to the list of cells that are corner marked. So the 7 has been reduced to these 2 cells within this box, which is true. And that's what the corner marks are going to mean. And right now it doesn't do anything, but it will come in handy later. That is the only repeated digit. Now you could go through and you could do just the repeated digits if you want, but what my recommendation is to do 2 more things before moving on. I think they're just as low-hanging fruit and can be just as helpful. And so it's useful to do before moving on to the next band, and it still just requires paying attention to the band itself, mostly. So the first thing I want you to do is look for any filled box rows. A box row is just a fancy way of saying a row within a box, right? Just convenient way of saying that. So the 3 cells that make up a row within a box. If a filled one would be, like this is a filled box column. We'll get to that much later. But filled box rows, because we're working on the band right now, would be like if this was filled with, say, a 2, then this would be a filled box row. But it's not filled with a 2, so we don't have any. So we don't have any of those. And then the next thing to look for is any row or box that has been reduced to 4 or fewer open cells. And I do see that this box is down to 4. This row, for example, is down to 5. So the only thing I see is this box has 4 left. And what I want you to do at the very least is just think about what are the 4 digits that remain in the box that will end up in these 4 cells. The answer is it's whatever these aren't, right? Whatever these givens aren't in the box. So it's the 2, 5, 8, and 9. And you're looking for 2s, 5s, 8s, and 9s to see how they help out the box. And you're looking all around the box for it. So this is where we kind of do break out of our kind of band-centric scanning for a little bit. So I'm seeing this 2 here, which means 2's not in these 2 cells. That means we can corner mark 2 in one of these 2. Now, my recommendation with corner marks is only corner mark if you're down to 2 places in the box. You can always corner mark it. If it's 3 places in the box, only if they're all in a row or all in a column. If they share a row or column, that's fine. If it was like this, I would not mark it because it's 2 different columns and 3 different rows, so it's no good. It needs to be a single column or a single row. All right, so that was the 2, and then we also had the 5. This 5 is taken out of these 2, so we can mark those 5s. Now, this is something we're going to follow up on immediately, which is called pointing. Normally, I would say, hey, just wait till you scan the stack, but because we haven't really worried about this stack yet. But I will say that it's really easy to miss later. And so there are certain things we want to follow up on when it's more advanced that we're not going to necessarily notice as easily. And so what I mean by that is, what is pointing? Well, in this box, we have reduced where the 5 can go to these 2 cells. That's what our corner marks mean. And those 2 cells happen to both share a column. They share column 5. And which means that the rest of the column can't be 5 because if the 5 is up here, so it can't be down here, right? Wherever this 5 ends up, here or here for the box, those are our 2 options. There will be a 5 here, or there will be a 5 here. There is not another or, there's not an omission. It'll be here or here. Either way, these cells will see a 5 and cannot repeat the 5. So importantly, these are not 5, and this 5 says these are not 5. And so we can corner mark the 5 down here. And that's going to be helpful to remember, because if later we come around and do the box or the stack, we may not notice these 5s as easily. All right, and then we also have, so it was 2, 5, 8, 9. We also have this 8 looking up, putting the 8 in one of these 2. Quite handy, right? If those 8s also point, this 8 looks in. We have this 8. And so we can mark the 8s in this box as well. Just a little nice reminder, like a string on our finger there. Okay, and so now what I want you to do is think about whether any of these cells were reduced to 3 or fewer digits each. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at this cell here. We said that the box needs 2, 5, 8, 9. But this cell can't be 2 or 8, which means this cell can only be 5 or 9. If you were to list out, like just one at a time, if you're say, what if I put a 1 here? Well, that would clash with that one. We're not going to do that. What if I put a 2 here? Well, that would clash with that too. I'm not going to go through them all, but if you went through them, you would find that only the 5 and 9 didn't have an immediate and obvious violation of Sudoku rules. Now, we don't know if it's going to end up 5 or 9, and we don't want to guess, but we want to notate that we want to remember that this specific cell can only be 5 or 9. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 5, 9 in the center. And center marks will always mean that it is a cell-centric marking, that this specific cell, the entire comprehensive list of candidates that it can be is 5 or 9. And I use candidates specifically because they are candidates for what the final digit will be. And we can actually go through all of these, and we're going to find that this is 8, 9, this is 2, 8, 9, and this is 2, 5, 9. And as long as we're down to 3 or fewer candidates, I would say it's worth marking. You might get an instinct later for like, hey, let's not clutter the board quite yet. I'll come back to that. And if you trust your memory to come back to that, or you don't think you're really going to need it at this stage, then you can them like the ones with 3 left. That's perfectly reasonable, or even omit ones with 2 left if you don't think it's going to be helpful. But build up that instinct first. Mark them first, and then you'll get a feeling after you do a lot of Sudokus on what you want to mark and what you don't. So, all right. So we marked up all those, and that's why we looked at this box with 4 open cells, because as you can see, we found a lot of interesting stuff about it. We're not going to bother looking at rows or boxes that are down to 5 or more, because they have less of a chance of being interesting, and we're going to have a higher chance of wasting our time. All right, so that was it for this band. We're just going to repeat the same thing for the next band. So I'm going to start in this box with the 5. Look for 5s here and here. I see this 5. They look into the other box, placing the 5 in one of these 2. So we corner mark that. And then we look at 4, 6, 9 over here. We have the 6 and the 9. So we have these two 6s looking in. This 6 looks down. That places the 6. Very, very nice. And then we have the 9s as well looking in. And now that this is 6 and 5, the 9 can only go here. So before we placed the 6, we weren't sure where the 9 could go, but now we knew that the 9 went here because the 6 went there. All right, that's it for repeated digits, but we do have a filled box row. We just filled it. It counts. It is filled. We know what 3 digits go there. It doesn't matter how it happened. And so what we want to do is we want to look at these 12 cells that aren't the row and aren't the box. And you want to look for any digits that aren't in the box yet. And unfortunately, it's just 5, 6, 9. So they're all in the box. So we don't get anything extra out of that, but that's what we're looking for. Rows or boxes down to 4 or fewer. Well, this row's down to 3. Since it's down to 3, we could just immediately center mark it. I like to at least think about it first, so I know what to expect out of the center marks. But you can also just center mark and clean up. But we need the 2, 3, and 7. And I'm looking around for 2s, 3s, and 7s that affect this, and I don't see any. So my expectation is that we're just going to fill 2, 3, 7 and move on. There's not much to see about it. This box is down to 4 digits, so it's it's going to be 2, 3, and 7, but what's the 4th one? Looks like it's the 4, so 2, 3, 4, 7. So we see this 4 looking in, this 4 looks in and this 4 looks in, meaning there's only one place for 4, so we can place it. Now, as soon as we place that, we can also, I guess we can keep thinking about the 2, 3, 7, but we do want to remember that we placed that 4. But I think this 2 is juicier right now because I just noticed it. So this 2 looking in is now telling us there's only one place for 2 in the box. You might go, well, this cell can be 2, 3, or 7. So why are you placing a 2 in it? It can be 2, 3, or 7. Well, the answer is because the box needs a 2. The box needs a 2. And there is only one cell in the box that can be 2. So we are perfectly safe putting a 2 there. That is a hidden single 2. And any hidden technique is going to remove options from cells that we thought could be options. And in this case, it removes everything but the 2, therefore we can place the 2. Now that 2 does mean these can't be 2 anymore, so we're left with what's called a 3, 7 pair there. We're left with a pair here as well. I'm going to fill this pair first. Whenever I see that there's a pair left, this is a pair for the box, right? Whenever I see that, it's always worth just plonking those down. So this is 3, 7. It matches that 3, 7, interestingly. And then we did get this 4, and we got this 2. We want to follow up on those. By follow up, I mean we already looked for something in this band, but we have new information, this 4. And so we already looked to see if there was a buddy 4, but now we do. And so the 4 ends up in one of these 2 cells. We placed the 2 as well, but there are no buddy 2s. I don't really see a use for the 2s. But I want to talk about this 3, 7 pair that we just got. So we found that in this box, these 2 cells could only be 3, 7. This can only be 3, 7. This can only be 3, 7. Now, the question I want to ask is, can they both be 3 or can they both be 7? And the red markings are giving away the answer. It's not a very tough answer, though. Not a very tough question to answer, which is no, they cannot both be 3. They cannot both be 7. We learned that the Sudoku rules say you can't repeat them in a column. Can't repeat them in a box either. So there's 2 rules that we're violating all at once by putting 2 3s or 2 7s. Well, then, okay, the next question is, what values are they going to be then? What are our options? And between these 2 cells, our only options are 3 or 7. And so we need 2 different digits to put in these cells because we can't repeat a digit. And those 2 different digits, the only options are 3 and 7. And so therefore, that's where the 3 and 7 go. So we either have 3, 7 like this, or we have 7, 3 like this. Those are literally the only 2 options. And so what we've found is that the 3 and 7 are going to be somewhere in these 2 cells, 1 each. And so can this cell be a 7? It's actually very similar to pointing, but it's a little bit more powerful because it removes 3 and 7 from all of these cells because they're going to be here. And these cells don't care how it resolves. They will see the 3 and the 7. This cell here, right, it cares how the 3, 7 resolve. If this is a 3, these can't be 3. If this is a 7, these can't be 7, right? So, but this doesn't affect them at all. Whether this is 3 or 7, these can still be 3 or 7 because they don't share a row, they don't share a box, they don't share a column. But this here, this does care. If this was a 7, we'd have nowhere to put 7 in this box. So this can't be 7. So we can remove the 7 corner mark because remember, our corner marks are the comprehensive list of cells in the box that can be 7. It's kind of okay that 7 is still there, but we can remove it, and we should, because we actually proved that this can't be 7 anymore. And now the comprehensive list of cells is down to 1. So we have found a hidden single 7. We can place it. We place that 7. Very, very nice. So that 3, 7 does that. Now this 3, 7 is very similar, but it affects the rest of the box. The box does not care how this 3, 7 pair resolves. They cannot be 3, 7 anymore. Well, if they can't be 3, 7, then they're down to 4 digits. So we want to think about it. We have the 1, 2. Remember that the 3 is involved in this 3, 7, so we don't need to count the 3. And so their first digit that if we count up is 5, and then 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. Oh, sorry. I listed 1, 2. So 1, 2, 5, and 8. So I got a little confused. Whenever I stop to explain something in the middle of doing something else, it's hard for me to backtrack. If I'm actually solving the puzzle, it's more fluid, so I apologize. But 1, 2, 5, 8 is what's left in this box. We want to be looking for 1s, 2s, 5s, and 8s. I'm seeing that this cell can't be the 1 or the 5. We already knew it couldn't be 5, right? We know these two can't be 5. And so if you want, you can a little shortcut a little bit and go, well, if these can't be 5, they're worth marking because they're down to 1, 2, 8. And that is 3 digits. We can put 1, 2, 8, and we can see that this 1 cleans up this one here. Now these are 1, 2, 5, 8, and I don't see any 1, 2, 5s or 8s like looking at them at all. And so there's nothing to do there. We don't want to mark 4, so we're not going to. Okay, and I do believe that takes care of this band. We got quite a bit out of it. Just double check up here, just a little quick glance. It doesn't hurt to make sure you didn't miss anything to follow up on. Like we did place this 7, but we already have all 3 7s. We placed this 4 at some point, but we do have all the 4s. We placed the 4 at the start. But just a quick double check doesn't hurt. But we are going to move on to this band now. So the 1 and the 2, we have a repeated 1. They look into here. We have this one up here. So 1 ends up in one of these 2 cells. No other repeated digits. So this is kind of a boring band. There's no filled box rows, and there's no boxes or rows down to 4 or fewer. So if it's boring, it's boring. We did the ones, and that's all we can do, and that's fine. And so now we're going to move on to stacks. So we're just going to go stack by stack, left to right. We're going to go through the 3 stacks, and we're going to do the exact same thing, but anytime I said row, say column instead. You can see how that kind of works. If this were on paper and I rotated the puzzle 90 degrees, then suddenly I'd have 3 new bands to take care of in the same way. But we don't need to rotate to do that. So I'm looking at this 1 and 2. I'm seeing we have all of our 2s already, so we can ignore 2s. But we do have 2 1s, and then this one looks in, and that places a 1 here. Now, as soon as you place that, my recommendation is to follow up on it. So the first follow-up is we do have a buddy 1, and then this one looks in, and so we can place this 1. Now this one, it does remove 1 from an existing marking. And when we do that, whenever you modify a center marking, and I have been doing this as we go, but this is the first time we've seen something, you want to be looking to see if you have formed a pair or triple. In this case, because we reduced it to 2, we're looking for pairs. We actually do see we have another 2, 8 in the row/box. And so that affects the row and the box. First of all, it affects the row, right? These can't be 2 or 8 anymore. And notice we do have kind of a stack of follow-ups that we've been doing. We were working on this stack. We got this one that placed this one, which removed this one, and we're following up on this band. So I mean, it's okay. Follow up in the order that makes sense to you, but just try not to miss anything. That's the important bit. Or you're gonna have to go back and find it later, probably. But this 2, 8 pair is telling us. I explained this earlier. I'm not going to explain it again. It removes 2, 8 from the rest of this row, which means this can't be 8. Importantly. Which does mean we can place the 8 in this box based on our corner marks. It also reduces this row to 4 or fewer, 4 in this case, because we know where the 2, 8 is in the row. So these are 4 digits. These are the 4 digits that are missing, the 1, 3, 4, and 7. I'm seeing this cell can't be 1 or 4, and so 1, 4, or 7. So I said 1, 3, 4, 7 is left for these 4 cells, and this cell can't be 1, 4, or 7. So let me just to demonstrate, let me write it out in center marks. You can see it can't be a 1, it can't be a 4, and it can't be a 7. So the comprehensive list of candidates is just 3. And this is our first naked single that we found. I'm sure there's others in the grid that we haven't found. But this is our first naked single. It is a naked single 3. Now naked, I could have called this a naked pair. But the term naked means we're using the center marks. So this was a naked 3, 7, naked 2, 8, naked 3, 7. And so this is a naked 3, meaning that there's the list of candidates for that single cell was just 3, so we can place the 3. You may say, well, you can put 3 elsewhere in this box. Like, why wouldn't the 3 be here? Or why wouldn't the 3 be here? And the answer is this cell can only be 3. So we're not placing a hidden single. we're placing a naked single, which still has the result of placing a digit, but the logic is very different for why we're placing that digit, but it is still 100% sound. We are saying that this cell needs to have a digit in it, and the only digit that's allowed to go in there by Sudoku rules is a 3. Therefore, it is a 3. So we place the 3, and then that removes the 3 from here, making this a naked single 7, and then that's a 3. I'm going to stop saying that when we're in this situation. I'm just going to place it. You see 3 and 7, 7's red. We're placing the 3. Okay. So now these are down to a pair, these are down to a pair, and these are down to a pair. So let's find out what they all are. This is 1, 4, not resolved. The rest of this box, we do need a 2 and a 7, and we can actually see this 7 tells us the order. This is 2 and 7. Now that 2 removes a 2 corner mark. So there's only one place for 2 left in this box, which places the 2. Now that 2, when we place it, it used up an 8 corner mark. So now we have a hidden single 8 as well. So we place the 2 and 8. That's the power of our corner marks. We didn't have to rescan that. We also end up with this 5, 9 pair in this box. That affects the column, leaving 1, 3, 4 behind. So we can just place 1, 3, 4 here, and then remove the 1 and the 4. That 7 was just a fat finger. Don't worry about it. Didn't mean to type it. This is down to, this column has only 2 left. Whenever you see anything with 2 left, just put what the digits are. Because I see it's 2 and 5, and this 2 can't be here. So this is the 5, and this is the 2. Okay. We haven't quite moved on to this stack yet, so I'm not going to quite look at these 4. We could, but I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But this band is almost completed. We just need this pair filled, and then the band will basically be done. It is the 1 and the 5, and this 1 does tell us the order. That's 1, that's 5. So we just have this 3, 7 pair, 2, 8 pair, and 1, 4 pair to resolve, but they're all horizontal pairs. And so the band, there's no reason to look at the band anymore as a band, because it can't resolve itself. It's going to need something external to come in and resolve these pairs. Okay, so that was very nice. The last thing I'm going to note is that 3 ended up in one of these two. It's not that important, but I'm seeing for this column that that's true. The 3 can only be in these 2 out of these 3. Anyway, so now we're going to re-follow up on this box, or in this band here. We placed this 1. We also placed this 2 and 8. So we want to follow up on those. These 2s look in. There's a 2 in one of these 2. The 8 does not actually have any buddies. So we're not worried about that. But this 1 and 8 that we placed reduced this row to 3 digits. They are the 3, 5, and 9. And I am seeing, because of this 3 here and this 3 here, that there's only one place for 3. So we can just place that instead of hustling first. And this is 5 or 9. Now placing that 3 is pretty big. We have these 2 3s now. And then this 3 looks in, placing this 3. Now we were scanning this stack. We'll come back and scan that stack again if we need to. We were on it already. So I'm not going to follow up on the stack yet. I'm going to keep at this band until there's nothing left to find. And so we do have this, there's a lot of things we could look at. We have this filled box row. Let's actually look at that first. So anything that's not 1, 3, 4, 7 here is interesting. 1, 3, 4, 7, not interesting. So it's just the 2, right? So the 2, and we have that marked. Okay, so now this box is down to 4 digits. We could skip it because we are going to go back to the stack anyway, and the third step of this stack is to find this box. But I'm going to look at it because I think there might be more to get out of this band. It's just instinct. Because we also have to look at this for the band. So let's just look at this first. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 5, 6, 8, 9. So you can see that this can't be 5 or 8. So this is only 6, 9. This can't be 6 or 9. So this is only 5, 8. And I think this can be any of 5, 8, 6, 9, so we're not going to mark it. The entire column is 5, 8, 6, 9, but there's not anything super special I'm seeing about that. So let's just hold off on that when we get back to the stack. This row, though, is going to be 5, 8, 6, 9 as well. Sorry, 5, 6, 8, 9 as well. So this is 5, 8, 9. This is 5, 6, 8, because we have the 6 and the 9. There's not really much special going on with that, actually. Okay, yeah, I'm not too worried about these at the moment. All right, so now we finally rewind back to looking at this stack. I'm going to look for repeats again. So the 2s were done. The 2s are done. The 1s are done. Notice this box is filled, so we're always going to find a repeat. The question is whether it's placed or not in the last box. So we're just going to look at 3, 4, and 7 here. So the 3s repeat, putting a 3 down here. The 4s, we're always going to have a repeat, right? But this 4 looks in as well, placing the 4 in this box. Now we want to rescan this band, right? So we get the 4s in here. That puts a 4 in one of these 2. Doesn't do anything else immediately. It didn't cause a row or a box to be 4 or fewer. It didn't fill a box row. We do see it caused this column to be down to 2 digits, so we're just going to immediately do the 5, 8. This 5 tells us this is 8, this is 5. This is why we do it immediately. All these 5 9s resolve. It also resolves the 6. This is now resolved as an 8. These can't be 8 anymore. And in fact, this is a 2, 8 pair, which we can fill, and this is a 5, 6, 9. Can't be 5. All right, very, very nice. So this band is basically done as well. Now these are just down to pairs and triples, so we don't have to worry about anything other than just looking at what those are, center marking them, and moving on. So we need a 2, no, we have the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, we need 5 and 6 here. And I am looking to see if that does anything, right? We're placing a 5, 6. Are there 5, 6 pairs? Are there 5s or 6s already over here? That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. We need we have 1, 2. We need a 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 7 and 9. We have this 7 here. 3, 7, 9 doesn't seem to do anything to these cells. We don't need the 3 corner marks anymore, though, because the triple takes care of it. Okay, so now this stack, again, I would just fill these because it's down to 4. There's not much else to look at there. So we need, let's see, this column needs a 1. And okay, so 1 can be in these 2 places, right? But in terms of these 3 left, 1's only down here. We have it corner marked. We have the 2. We need a 3, but these aren't allowed to be 3. Okay, 3. Actually, I'm looking at what the column needs. Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. 2, 3. We need a 4 in the column. They go. This is the only place for 4 other than that 1, 4. We have the 5. The last 2 digits are 6 and 9. I'm just going to fill 6, 9 here. Okay. And I'm looking again to see if we've caused any pairs or anything like that. So I think that's all we're getting out of this stack. So we'll do this stack finally. You don't always finish the puzzle when you finish the stacks, but in this case, we're either getting close or we are finishing, which is very nice. I am seeing that we have this 2, 8 pair, but let's look for duplicates first. So we have 1s and 4s; those are all done. We have the 3 and the 7; no duplicates there. But I do have this. This column is just naturally down to 4, so let's look at that first. We need the 2, 5, 8, 9. I'm seeing the 2, 5, 8 looking at this cell, so this is a naked single 9. So we can place that 9. That gives us the 5 here as well. That's 6, that's 9. These are not 9 anymore. I'm looking to see how that affects things, but it doesn't seem to do anything immediately. This is down to 2 or 8, but can't be 2, so that's the 8, that's the 2, that's the 8, that's the 2, and then the 8. Resolves all our 2, 8 pairs. Okay, well that was quite nice. So I think penciling at this point is good. This column is down to 3 digits. 1, 2. We need 3, 6, and 7. And I know the 6 is in one of these 2, for what it's worth. Yeah. So we could probably have found this a different way, but this is a fun thing to point out now that it's come up. When I cornered these 6s, I looked at these 2 boxes to see if they had 6s limited to the same 2 rows. And this box does have 6 limited to the same 2 rows. I've highlighted everywhere that can be 6 in this box and everywhere that can be 6 in this box, and found that they only encompass rows 7 and 8. So the question we want to ask is, where does row 9 get a 6 from? Well, it's not from this box and it's not from this box. Therefore, the 6 in row 9 will be from this box, and there's only one of them available. So that actually is going to place the 6, the 3, and the... it's going to place the 6, the 1, the 3, and the 4, and the 9. It's going to finish this box, right? Because this is the 6 for the row. See, it's the only cell in the row that can be 6. And then that displaced a 1 corner mark, which places this 1. That displaced a 3, places the 3. That displaced a 4, which places the 4. And then the 9 is placed because it's the last digit in the box. That also resolves the 1 and 4 in this box. This 3 is resolved, right? I'm going to just speed up at this point. This is 3, 7, and 9. That gives us the 6 here. Gives us the 7, 3, and 7. This 6 gives us the 5 and the 6. And the last 3 digits are 2, 3, and 5. This is the 2, this is the 5, this is the 3. All right, and we finished. We managed to finish on the last stack scan. Sometimes you do get through the bands and the stacks using these and you don't finish the puzzle. There are some previous mediums where I've gone over what to look for there. But if you do encounter that situation, there are more things to look for, but we didn't need to in this one. I'd say that a decent chunk of mediums do solve just with what I just described. Hards, much less often. You do need to look for some more subtle stuff with hards. And so that's why I always say hard does seem does actually seem harder than medium, but I get a lot of comments saying the medium's harder than the hard. So I'm wondering what I'm doing in the medium that people are missing when they solve medium themselves. So I'm curious about that. But hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, then why not leave a like, subscribe, and a kind comment below.